Draclin, undefined months. Congratulations for your undefined months. What an incredible streak. That broke. That didn't work. Why didn't that work? Draclin, you're a hero. I couldn't be more proud of you. I didn't show your message and it showed as undefined. Why? Why did this happen? Hello everyone else that isn't Draclin. It's me, Scott. I'm cold. Put on my sweater. Oh, stream baby. Oh, right. 9 months to have a baby. Right. I get it. Sorry. I was so caught up with the undefined. I didn't get your joke. I blew it. Hello, it's me. I haven't streamed in like a week. I had to have like a job where I go to a place every day and work, and it's makes me tired. But hello. Should we look at that? Should we look at why that doesn't work? That's really not what the stream is. Let's take a quick gander. Maybe we'll see some obvious reason why bot made this is broken. Hi, hello. Distracted already. That's okay. No, that's what these are for. You're good. That may be a record. Life Intruders is extremely good at distracting me, but you did it like before the stream even started. Actually, I was distracted. Okay, why undefined, huh? So is that resub? I feel like don't I normally say something? I got so distracted I forgot. I think I did all the things I was supposed to do to start the stream. We'll properly intro in a minute. Resub? Is that what that's called? Streak months. Streak months. You know what? I feel like I remember the documentation saying there was some scenario in which that could be wrong, but I don't ever remember where the thing is. Is it here? Resub? Resub? Draclin, you've been on so many adventures lately. You went to Disneyland, you went camping. Did you do the business trip also? Didn't you also have a business trip you're doing? This is the wrong documentation, right? Isn't this one I'm not supposed to use? How do I know when I'm at the... Yeah. Resub. You did all the things. You've done it all. Wait. Maybe you didn't share your streak. Did you do something to like not share it or something? You did share it because it clearly says currently on a 9-month streak. They subscribed for 9 months. So data.streak months. Did I not type that correctly? Streak months, an integer. Data.streak months. Your username worked. You checked the box. Yeah, 9 months. Dragon, why didn't this work? Should I use this instead? Do your stuff, it says. The cumulative months. I already forgot what this means. I looked this up last time we looked at this documentation. Why doesn't it work? That's resub, right? Resub from somebody for some reason. I should really log these events somewhere. But I don't. I could stick them in Mongo. That Mongo thing's almost over. We never did anything for it. What a disaster. We're not going to win all the millions of dollars. For undefined months. User decided to share their streak. Like, presumably that's true, right? don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand. Maybe I'm trying to think of a way I could do this where I could have some sort of like easy insight, and I think there is a way, maybe, where I can like inspect the version of Chrome that's running in OBS. Okay, well, Jacqueline, remind me in a month, and we'll try this again. It looks like I did it right. Correctly. You got it. All right. See you in a month. Okay, that's the end of the stream today. No, the thing we're doing, here's the thing we're doing. I am teaching a workshop tomorrow that snuck up on me a little bit because of all the work doings and whatnot. But I have tomorrow off, so I'm going to spend the day prepping for the workshop, and then the workshop is at 6 to 9. And then 1 week later, we will have the second half of the workshop. So what I'm thinking is that tomorrow is going to be just kind of an overview of the topic, me ranting about some things, and maybe some light demos, but not a ton of hands-on stuff. And then the second workshop will be all about, like, let's try to make some things, I think. I don't know quite how to stage that other than just have a bunch of stuff ready for the next workshop, and then people can show up and we play with it and whatever. So the first thing to do, I believe, is just start roughing out. I feel like I got a new layout that I liked. Was it this? I close this? I don't know. Oh, it's this button. Man, I don't know. My friend Hope's been streaming. She told me she's addicted already. Happens. I need a shout out thing, huh? I can add that one day. Should have added that to the to-do list. Okay, so yeah, right. I'm teaching a workshop at PNCA on invisible technology, and I want to start writing the outline for that. I feel a little fuzzy in my brain. So let's start doing it. Let's think about how we want to do this. So there's some like broad topics I want to cover. One of them, I think one section is just kind of like the 20th century future, because I take issue with the 20. Yeah, here's the thing. Let me break it down. Like if we just looked up something, you know, if you look up at popular science fiction from much of the 20th century, say like, well, certainly from the middle towards the later, but when science fiction was a thing in the world, it was like, you know, what if we just search for Star Trek? Just search for, oh, we need like original. We have to put in TOS. Just want to see the inside of the ship. Maybe Star Trek Bridge. I mean, they're always like this. There's all these surfaces, and they're plastic, and they got lights all over them, and it's all buttons and screens, and they're not even tactile. They're just flat screens. I'm in like the game though. I need I mean, this is an okay looking bridge, but it's still like there's screens all over the place. There's buttons all over the place. Like, I don't. This was a view of the future, or even worse. Like, I need to find some good reference for this tomorrow. But everything is like sterile and buttons and lights, and it's like that's how we thought the world was going to be. We thought the future was going to be this, just all over the place. And it hasn't really proven to be that way. And I think it's because humans like tactility and warmth and real materials. You know, I think we like that stuff. I don't think we necessarily like these totally sterile fake plastic environments, even though that was kind of the view of the future, unless it was the cyberpunk future, in which case everything was rainy and wet. And like it seemed like that future was starting to happen, especially in the last couple decades of the 20th century, where suddenly our homes had more and more and more pieces of technology all the time, and the TVs got bigger and the screens got bigger, and then there were like answering machines and telephones and DVD players and cassette tape VHS rewinders. It's like it's so obtrusive because people, you know, and especially in that era, like moving into maybe the 70s, out of the 70s, maybe 80s and 90s is when things started really getting plastic all the time. Because when you look at, I think this is really interesting, when you look at old televisions, the way, these aren't even old enough. I'm thinking like this era or older. Like old televisions were kind of treated like furniture. Like they were like, okay, this is your home. You have like all of your nice furniture. You have all of these nice pieces of wood and fabric and these nice materials in your home, and you're going to bring this television into it. And in that era, it was kind of reasonable. Of course, they were huge, heavy machines, but it was kind of reasonable to think like, yeah, you'd kind of want this to be a piece of furniture so that it could integrate into the world a little more. Or even like an old television with doors. Stuff like this where you could close it when it wasn't time to be watching TV, especially really old TVs and old radio consoles. Old radio consoles were like this too, where it's like, oh, this can be a nice looking piece of furniture in your home that goes with your rest of your nice furniture. And when it's time to watch whatever old show you're going to watch, you can open up the doors. And then that just kept changing. And then you got more and more of this with big black rectangles all over the place. And that's kind of the world we're in now. And it's kind of the bummer. Where this stuff just doesn't integrate well because people still tend to want some warmth and tactility in their environments. So you end up with homes where that stuff just doesn't fit in very well. Where you can have like, oh, a nice piece of furniture, but then there's a giant black rectangle on it and pieces of plastic and whatever. And so that part of the way technology is in our lives bums me out because it's kind of intrusive. And like I have multiple large black rectangles in my home that I don't even engage with that frequently, but they just dominate the space. Like this big television over here is just sitting over there being a big jerk, occupying part of my room, like this sort of thing too. It's just there, and I don't have my machine turned on very much. I know a lot of people do. So that's part of what I'm thinking about. The other thing that I'm thinking about a lot is just how bad these things are, and how what a bad experience it is to do this and like slap your meat fingers against glass. Like this isn't good. Like this is awful. It's not tactile. You have to look at it. It's hard to type on. It's no good. This is pretty good. It's got buttons on it. It's got these little nubs here so you can type without looking. Like this, I like this machine. Okay. But in general, it's like we had sort of a home environment that in many ways hadn't changed for centuries. And then all of a sudden it's intruded upon by all of this technology. And it didn't have to be that way, really. It didn't have to be really intrusive stuff. Like we could have come up with ways to integrate that. Probably it could have been designed or engineered to be part of our lives a little better, but it really hasn't been, unfortunately. And now here we are in the future, and we don't typically live in white plastic rooms with screens and buttons all over the place. Not everybody. Maybe Jacqueline does. But in general, we still like paint and fabric and wood and all that stuff. And so part of this talk is the rant I just gave. How long did that rant take? That was a 10-minute rant. Okay. It's just about like the 20th century future. There's buttons and screens everywhere. Sterile environments. Cold. And then there's sort of like the 20th century late 20th century reality, which is kind of like intrusive plastic rectangles. Like all these rectangles all over the place. And then another aspect of this, which I think is just kind of funny, is sort of unimaginative. Did I spell that correctly? How do you spell unimaginative? Why does it think that's wrong? Unimaginative. Okay. There's an aspect of that that's pretty funny. Like there's a trope, I certainly didn't come up with this, but there's a trope about the what's the thing called? Just a communicator? About the connection between this, the kind of classic, and again, I have not come up with this. This is well-worn territory. But the notion of this prop from the original Star Trek series, and like the flip phone, and just how, you know, as the almost joke kind of goes, the engineers that grew up as kids watching this TV show, Star Trek in the 60s, grew up. So by late 90s into early 2000s, they were the people that were making this thing, the thing that flipped open. And how that's just kind of, I don't know, it's not sad necessarily, it's just a little weird. Maybe the science fiction doesn't get enough credit in that realm as far as being inspiration to the people that later go on and design the things. And I think I'd heard that before, and now I look at the world we're in now, where you're supposed to yell at your technology all the time, and the newest, like, what is supposed to be kind of the state-of-the-art way to interact with technology is by yelling at it 6 times until it understands, is like just a later version of Star Trek. So when I was a kid, it was Star Trek The Next Generation, and you would hit this cool little button on your uniform. You just slap this thing, and then you would talk to the computer, and it'd be awesome. And the computer would just hear whatever you were talking about, and that's how you interacted with the computer in that world. And that worked okay in that science fiction realm. I don't think it works very well here. In general, those things don't work very well for me, and it's just hard to imagine people like using them in public as the dominant way. Like everybody just walking around constantly yelling at the computers doesn't seem great. Yeah, man, it's a bummer. And so yes, you're pointing out that speech to text feels worse than typing in a lot of cases. I feel that for sure. Maybe we're just old, but I can type on this mechanical keyboard way faster than I can type on a glass screen, certainly, and much faster than I can wait for some speech to text algorithm to properly parse what I'm trying to say. I cannot talk about this too much, but I'm working on a project that involves speech to text, and I spend a good portion of my day repeating myself over and over and over again to a robot, trying to get understood. So it's not great. You assume it will get better, and maybe that's some aspect of the future of technology, is talking to it. I think that's fine. But the reason I think that's fine is because talking is one of the tools that is already here for us, right? Like it's not intrusive. The part that's intrusive now is just how bad these devices are at parsing what you want to say, and how like limited they are in executing on what you want to say. But you have to assume that will get better. So in some ways, yes, I do think that speech is going to be part of our future of interacting with technology, but it doesn't work very well right now. So it's kind of a regression. Maybe it's like a evolutionary thing, like a regression, like we hit a local maxima and we have to get a little worse before we get better. But I think there's other things, right? So like, so there's kind of this aspect of like how humans live and how humans communicate. Because there's certainly speeches here, but there's also facial expressions and gestures and it could be that is sort of something that you would when you think like the long game, that's what you kind of come down to is like eventually something should be able to read your brain and respond to those intents, right? Like that seems like the end result of these things. And it's going to be weird. Like it's going to be slow coming. I will probably still insist that I can type faster than the thing can read my brain. I don't know. We'll see. I can type pretty fast. Maybe I'll be an old man racing. But so that's a part of the thing, is just intuiting that, because that's a weird thing, because that's even almost a level beyond what I'm talking about, because that is already a problem with human communication, is just my intent, what's in my head versus what comes out of my mouth and what goes to you or anyone else that is listening to me is there's something lost in that exchange. And there's even something lost in the exchange from here to here. And then on the other end, there's something lost from here to here. And if I can just go from here to here, it's pretty interesting. Pretty interesting scenario. But in the meantime, since we're not like telepathic cyborgs just yet, humans interact certainly by speech, but also by expression or gesture or manipulating objects together and coordinating. Like there's a lot of tactility there. And there's a lot of smaller cues that are happening all the time that in electronic experiences, those are things that are very flattened. Like those are things that are flattened down to like, well, it's a thing that's got to appear on a rectangle or blink in a light. Success at using some kind of tool come up growing up with. Yeah, well, I think that's a thing that always sort of happens. The telepathy tool, right? Yeah, right. Whether, I mean, I already wonder if I feel that way a little bit now, is like maybe I'm just a generation behind on, presumably the kids growing up now will be able to do meaningful, productive things on phones and tablets. I'm just incapable of it. Like I need a keyboard to do work. And so maybe I am already out of the loop on that because I didn't grow up with it. And you can assume that the next generation will be able to do those things because they did grow up with their fingers on glass. And then when we do have the telepathy tool, those kiddos will develop like new neural pathways to accommodate that device in a way that the adults of that time won't have. But those are like, I guess part of what I want to talk about with this talk is those are certainly future concerns for sure. But I'm talking about like stuff we have right now and how clumsy it all feels, like how clumsy our technology feels, how clumsy it is to talk to the speech assistant over and over again, how clumsy it is to try to type on a phone. Like all those things are just they're not very good experiences. There's a lot of friction. New follow, double new follow. Thank you. I don't know how to say it. Debanjana. Thanks for the follow. I don't know why I got it double. Did I leave glitch open? Who knows? Maybe I broke something. Massive friction between user and hardware. And it's a bummer. We like warmth, tactility, real materials. In general, we like that stuff. And that's it. I haven't really thought of this. So there's a whole aspect of this I'm being slow to make this point because I'm formulating all these things. But there's an aspect of this that I think also correlates to the idea of craft and what craft means in the 21st century, because craft is a tactile thing typically. Like it's a thing where you're engaged with the material in a very direct way, and it's in your hands and you're working with it. And I feel like we don't often have those experiences with technology. We're starting to get that way, you know, there's some aspects of AR and VR controllers and things like that. Maybe, oh cool, Dracklin's creeping for me. So that is definitely a part of this. So maybe we have like I'm gonna say like crafted materials are pretty central, because I think those things are central to human experiences, in the environments we like to have and the ways we like to interact. I'm gonna say that the technology recedes rather than intruding. Did I not spell recedes correctly? Why can't I spell anything? That's how you do it. Rather than intruding. What else am I gonna say? I'm gonna format all this stuff tomorrow. Just trying to get the outline today. So yeah, so we'll have this whole section that's kind of the intro section, and then we will have a section what's that quote? I mean, there's that, you know, whatever that Asimov quote that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So magical experiences, like if you do something that's a sophisticated, computational, interactive, technological feat, and you don't know, or it isn't apparent to you that technology is involved, it can be really cool. It can be like a really eye-opening experience. And I guess my my context for all of this stuff is sort of like art and creativity. I'm not necessarily focused as much on the practical uses of these things, although I think there are some practical uses. So I think we'll formulate that rant a little tighter tomorrow, but not aware that the tech is involved. So some of my projects in that realm, like one of the things that even made me start thinking of the phrase invisible technology was the beatbox, right? So the whole notion here is it's like these are living beats from the grocery store. This is a hardwood box that I crafted by hand, and the wires were all hidden. And so when you use this thing, it was like you were just touching a vegetable. And I used a pretty simple capacitive circuit setup to just make the beats into capacitive touch sensors. These are, yes, they're highly responsive beats. This detail on the top was with a router. When I say built by hand, I did use tools, but I mean, like, I built it. I used some power tools. Yeah, Dracklin, sick beats. Yeah, so this dude built this thing. That was a router. I'm afraid of routers slightly. But it was just a Raspberry Pi, a little audio amp that I built, and then this dude, NPR, whatever it's called. NPR 121 capacitive touch circuit. And this was all the tech to it. It was relatively simple. I don't know how to say your Deben. How do I say your name? Are you a cool hacker? Dracklin creeped on you. He cyberstalked you. So this was a project that I was into in that, because if this was just sitting there, it's not immediately clear that there's any technology involved at all. Like I went through pains to try to hide all the tech. Similarly, Reach was a similar idea where even though I kind of wanted to show the tech on this because it's the most beautiful like little circuitry boxes I've ever made. Look at how beautiful they are. Look at these beautiful little guys. This stuff was all hidden, and so when the kids at the Children's Museum would interact with this stuff, this is currently in the airport in Pittsburgh. When you interact with it by touching these things, you don't really know that there's technology going on. And I'm sending just a little bit of electricity through children, but only a very little bit of electricity through children. Because this is not capacitive touch, it's more like resistive touch. So you have to touch the moon and one of the stars, or you have to touch the moon and a person, and then that person can touch it. Diabanjana? I don't know if I'm getting, I don't know. Diaban? Jana? Wait, which project did I realize the one where chaos was better? And what did I change? Wait, what? Which one? With the kids? Oh, that one. Do I have that one documented? I might just have a little piece of that on Instagram. I don't know. At a certain point I decided that I wasn't going to document any like commercial work for hire projects, at least on my portfolio. But the Children's Museum stuff is kind of in between. Here's the different bugs, I think. Maybe I have some of them. This was for a Eric Carle exhibit. And so originally the idea was that you would hold the bugs, and then if you held them in a certain way, like a symphony would emerge, but the kids just wanted to just slap them all. So I made it much more responsive and fun and have the light and sound responding to just when you touch them. And the kids loved it a million times more. And that's kind of happened with a few things. That was actually the same thing with, did I post a video of that on here? I don't know. Maybe just a still. It was the same thing with this thing. This thing, I originally made it like, I knew to make it a little bit where they could play with it and go a little crazy, but they really wanted to play with this and go crazy and pull these really hard. So I made it where like the water would always spray and bubbles would come out and bees would fly everywhere. Like no matter how crazy you went with it, the kids, some of the kids want to just go insane and have it be fun. And some of the kids want it, you know, they want to really learn how it works. This one was all Unity, yeah. This one was all Unity. That previous one was a Beagle board, I think, and Python. And then maybe this one was a Beagle board. Maybe that other one was Raspberry Pi. And then like these dudes, this was also in the realm of invisible technology, which I showed before on stream. But these guys that are just supposed to look like wooden sculptures, but they're doing weird technology things. So this is the realm of things that when I was making them, I was kind of formulating the ideas of invisible technology. I'll probably even talk about that in here somewhere. Maybe on one of these. So these are the kinds of things, and maybe I'll show some of these. We'll look at some of these videos. Boom. I forgot. These need to be HTML comments. Okay. And let's put this here. And like, so we'll talk about the first part, ask questions, we'll look at things, have a discussion about this, and then we will get into this part that's going to be a little bit more about kind of the anatomy of these interactions. And in general, the anatomy of these interactions is going to have some kind of input. and those will tie to the realm of what we will call sensors, and we will look at sensors. And then some sort of processing. This can be kind of the brain. And then some kind of output, which will be, I don't know, I was trying to figure out what the word is that is the like true opposite of a sensor, and I don't think there is a single word that does it. So I went with indicators and actuators is the nomenclature I'm going to use. And then I think we're going to do like an overview of simple sensors. And probably, I mean, a lot of this is going to be me just like Googling around and looking at stuff. I know that the physical computing, let's see, world at ITP, I thought there was something where they just had like a list of sensors. I'll have to dig up some sources tomorrow. Yeah, there'll be some basics here. But I want like sensors. Computing. Sensors, the basics. This is what we want? Yeah. So we'll talk about some, yeah, it's not a bad thing. And then we'll find some like list of sensors. Actually, I'm kind of interested to know this because I don't even know if I like actually could tell you every sensor in an iPhone currently. Maybe this article, because there's more than you would think. Like they're kind of crazy. This one sort of sucks. But just to you know, you think about this idea as like, oh yeah, it's a screen and a microphone, and most of the input is either by talking to it or pushing buttons on the screen. But there's way more sensors in this thing. The proximity sensor that knows if it's close to your face to like turn off the screen. Is it up here somewhere? Isn't it here? It's not working. My proximity sensor is broken. Why? Maybe it only happens when I'm on a call. Yeah, how close it is to your face. Has an accelerometer in it, which can even do like the lift to turn on thing, which is kind of cool. So there's almost even like a little bit of vague gesture detection with that. Ambient light sensor, which never works very well for me. The moisture sensor, which is really just a way to let the Apple employees get mad at you if your phone gets wet. Got a gyroscope, got a compass. I don't know that I really knew it had barometric pressure sensing. Oh, I guess it uses, oh, maybe I did know that it can use that to help with location. Touch ID, Face ID. It also has a microphone. It also has a camera. It also has, would you call it GPS a sensor? That's a little weird because it's really like talking to satellites, right? I mean, it's more than that though. It also has like Wi-Fi radios. It has all these different kinds of radio. Oh yeah, we have to talk about we gotta talk about the electromagnetic spectrum because it's just everything. Because I'm gonna kind of assume that people in this class won't know that the electromagnetic spectrum is everything. There used to be a cool chart that like showed this one I like. Oh, this is an XKCD one. This one's pretty good though. But I don't think people necessarily, I mean, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I feel like people don't necessarily intuitively just realize like that Wi-Fi and light are the same thing. Like they're the same thing. And that Wi-Fi and microwaves are like literally the same thing, just that different, they're both 2.4 gigahertz signals, just at different amplitudes. What does that talk about in this, in here? Microwave ovens. Microwave oven, but that's also Wi-Fi. I don't know. Oh, that's the wavelength size. Is that the baseball? So tiny here. But I feel like that's a thing to talk about. Is like so much with kind of. I almost think of it like every single signal you would sort of care about somewhere on the electromagnetic spectrum, except for sound. Yeah, it's kind of weird that that's not a thing that people. Am I wrong about that? Do you have that sense too, that people just sort of generally don't understand that all of these signals that are light, basically non-visible light, different flavors of light? There was a crazy one though. I saw one that I liked even a little bit more, even though it was like a chart of all vibrations, and it did include frequencies that were not only electromagnetic. It also included things like sound. This would be silly. It was just a cool thing that was like, yes. How to tune into God frequencies. Not really what I was looking for, but okay. Non-visible light. Yeah, I mean, it's weird. I don't know. It's a weird thing too. I think you get like, I feel like the discussion around it kind of messes things up, right? Even when you talk about the speed of light, it's like, well, that's not really just the speed of light. It's the speed of all electromagnetic radiation, isn't it? Like, isn't it a little weird to just, I think we're just such visually focused creatures that we want to talk about everything about light. Yeah, right. Like to talk, yeah, it's a pretty presumptuous to be like, oh, if we can't see it, it's not that important. I used to love this thing that is kind of not a thing anymore. So on older iPhones, the cameras in, I don't know about now, but like in an iPhone 3, almost certainly 4, probably, the cameras and many consumer cameras, accidentally would crunch a little bit of non-visible light into visible. So in other words, it would take what is really like in the infrared and just squish it a little bit. I don't exactly even understand why, but they just would. I even remember when I was a kid, I would look through my friend's parents had a camcorder, and you could look through it and look at the remote control and hit it, and you could see the hit a button on the TV remote, and you'd see the IR, and I was always so fascinated by that. And I tried to do a project a few years ago where I built a screen that was all IR light. And then Apple, like right at the time I was working at it, the new phones that came out all had IR filters built in, and it didn't work anymore. And I got nothing out of it except for maybe some permanent vision damage. I think I maybe like permanently damaged my eyes by shining a ton of IR into them. It's a sad story. Everything is electromagnetic. But I think that, yeah, I think that's the thing to understand. And I think that's another thing I actually love about, where can I rant about this? I'll find somewhere to rant about this. How much I think, how in many ways, this isn't fair at all, and I know it's reductive, but how in many ways I feel like the technology of the early 20th century is way cooler than the technology of the early 21st century. Because there's so much of the technology now, one, that it's like so miniaturized or complicated that it's hard to even fully comprehend. So it's hard to just sort of appreciate because of its complexity. But also because it's all like digitally focused, it's a little easier in some ways to understand. Even looking at the monitor that I'm looking at now, I get it. It's like, it's a grid of a bunch of really tiny Christmas lights, and those lights add up to make a picture. And it's like, that's pretty cool. Whereas a screen from 100 years ago was like, okay, well, we made this gun that shoots electrons, and then we set up this crazy thing that like creates an electromagnetic field, so when we shoot electrons out of the gun, they fly wherever we want them to go, and then we have them hit some phosphorescent thing and it makes it light up, and it's going to be a cool black and white image, and then we get to color, and we figure out a really smart way to cram color into the signal without changing it, and it's like the ultimate backwards compatible thing. Like, I think that is so cool. Like just the general principle of a cathode ray tube is so much cooler to me than an LCD screen. Like, even though, you know, an LCD screen is a much more complicated feat of engineering and manufacturing, like, man, look, this thing's just called an electron gun. That's pretty cool. This file is called eGun. That's pretty cool. Like, that's just way cooler to me. Oh yeah, look at DGOS. And when you would hold magnets up to these things, oh man, I love it. I love that stuff. It's so boring now. It's all boring. Oh yeah, that's a good point. Like heat and, well, yeah, like all the ways that heat, that like, well, that's a whole nother realm, right? Like the whole realm of sort of the interchangeability of heat and electricity, or heat and energy. I mean, I guess it's really easy to make heat from electricity. To make electricity from heat, you have to do the same thing we've done for a couple centuries and just boil some water, right? Everything is still a steam engine. That's also funny too. I gotta find a way to put that in this rant too. Everything is still a steam engine. I don't know where to put it. We'll just make some footnotes. Even a nuclear reactor is still a steam engine. Maybe the thing maybe I can find a realm to talk about, like how there's a lot of ways that our tech is more astounding. Of, you know, like there's things that are just astounding, like the miniaturization in particular, amazing. But there's lots of ways where realms in which our technology is just kind of embarrassing, where it's like, yes, I have this device is just astonishing. Like, it's this tiny computer that is orders of magnitude more powerful than what just a few decades ago would have filled a room. But to make it work, somebody still had to boil some water, like burn some coal or something. Maybe since I live in the Northwest, could have been hydroelectric, or it could have been wind, but very likely for many people in this country that some water was boiled to charge their phones. Okay, yeah, we're gonna talk about this. How do we want to do that? Okay, so we have some simple sensors. We might just find somewhere good to link, but the general analog will just be like, the human body has a set of senses. I like the model where we have like, whatever it is, 23 senses or whatever it is, where things like hunger is considered a discrete sense. But even if you boil it down to like 5 senses, there's analogs for most of the human senses. And that's another thing I want to rant about, is how, like, what a waste this is. Like, this thing right here, this machine at the end of my finger is so sensitive and is so able to like discern incredibly minute differences in a surface, and then I'm supposed to rub it on this thing, this stupid featureless thing. Is kind of frustrating. It also bummed me out recently reading about how, I mean, okay, I need to qualify this before I say it probably. It bummed me out from a certain perspective that Braille is not in wide use anymore. It is, so the reason being that screen reading software is much more popular. And of course, like, that is amazing, excellent for accessibility. That is a good thing, unqualified. That is a good thing. The accessibility offered by screen reading. I think we could do better than screen reading because that's still just reading, but I think that's cool. But it kind of bummed me out that reading that Braille was not as prevalent anymore, just because it is such a tactile, interesting thing. Like I've had times where I've considered, maybe this is insane and wouldn't even be possible or tenable for a sighted person, but to try to learn Braille or learn just have some ability to discern things with the like insane resolution of my finger. Another crazy thing is the insane resolution of our tongue. I want to talk about that too. Learned Braille as an adult. It's such an amazing thing. The resolution of the tongue is amazing too, because there've been devices. Oh yeah, we got to talk about this. We got to talk about like augmenting human senses. I'm getting a little off topic, but whatever. I have to talk for 3 hours tomorrow, so we'll talk about this a little bit. So this like tongue screen, I don't even know what to call it. This thing, the mouth pad. It's a tongue computer interface. But what's supposedly, or what I've heard about it at least, is that you basically put this thing on your tongue. It has some little electrodes that will give you like little tingles on your tongue, but your tongue is sufficiently sensitive and has enough sensitivity to give you a decent resolution so that you can experience the world through your tongue. I think this might not be the right one, actually. No, I'm sorry, this is the wrong one. We want the one that is like... this. Seeing with your tongue. Yeah, an electric lollipop, basically. There were some... I feel like I saw pictures of this thing. Yeah, this. It's like a pad that goes into your tongue, into your mouth, and then gives you... I don't remember. Oh, that's a gross picture. Oof. Like, gives you sensory information about the world around you, and like supposedly people are able to walk and navigate spaces, and it's pretty amazing. This picture is disgusting. I can't look at that picture anymore. Whoa. Wait, what are we talking about? Miraculin? Is this like Draculin? Oh, is this that crazy thing? Yeah, that you can eat. That's pretty cool. That's pretty weird. That's a little out of the realm of what I'm talking about, but it's pretty cool. I don't think I knew that's what that name was. Or I'm sorry, I don't think I knew that is what this was called. Yeah, tongues are cool, but that's not the same thing. This is more in the realm of taste, I guess. I don't know that I've seen something that was really like a taste-based interface. It is pretty crazy. So I've certainly seen interfaces, like this is an interface that interfaces with your tongue, the thing we just looked at. I don't know that I've seen, I mean, there's like some VR startups that are letting you smell VR experiences. So that's a thing that's happening. There was another one that I really liked, adding new human senses. One of the crazy ones here, let's see. How do I search for this in a way that isn't gonna lead to porn? This, although this is an implant. So the that's kind of crazy. So the original thing that I was thinking of was just a thing where somebody basically built a belt, and all around that belt were little vibrating motors, and whichever the northernmost motor always vibrated slightly, and it gave the wearer almost a sixth sense of which way north was. Which is pretty cool. Man, there's some cool stuff in this realm, but this is also not quite on topic, but I'm pretty into it. Maybe we'll look at this a little more tomorrow. But I think actually, you know why I like those things is they are ways of thinking about human technology interactions that are out of the realm of screens and buttons. You think you'd phantom feel it? Yeah, probably. I know that there's people now that are like being more aggressive with implants. There's I don't know the veracity of this, but I know, definitely heard of people implanting, how do you say that word? Maybe I should learn it once for all. Once and for all. The rare earth magnets, the neodymium, that's a word I've seen my whole life. This is it. We're gonna learn how to say it. Finally, after all this time. Is everyone ready? Prepare. Who was muted?
Neodymium.
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 Neodymium. I have a real problem with pronunciation because I grew up in Texas where nobody had a vocabulary or knew how to pronounce words. And so most of the words that I know, or many of the words that I know, especially from early in life, I like read them and never heard them pronounced. Anyway, people implanting rare earth magnets in their hands and then at least claiming that that helped them like sense electricity or sort of feel electrical fields in an interesting way. Yeah, you learned them on the internet in conversation. I mean, I feel like I learned it just a lot of words just from certainly on the internet in recent years or just reading books and then not knowing. I recently learned in the last few years that I'd been mispronouncing the word quinine my entire life. Actually, I should verify that. Let's learn that. I used to say quinine, but I think it's quinine. Let's see.
Quinine.
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 Quinine. Hearing resolution more than visual resolution? Interesting. I wonder about that. So like there's stuff there's the thing, the type, the people that insist on listening to vinyl albums, even though now if you buy a new vinyl album, it kind of makes no sense because it was probably produced entirely digitally. Anyway, for the people that insist that, which, you know what, it's fine. If you listening to something on vinyl can make it sound warmer, especially on like older tech. So if you like to listen to music that way, that's fine. But the people that insist that like the analog encoding of a record is better than even CD quality audio and that humans can hear it, I don't really buy that. I mean, there's absolutely a bit rate below which there's just not enough resolution and sample rate, but like 192 kilohertz sample rate at 24-bit, like, I don't know that I think any person could listen to that and know the difference. And I feel like I've read a number of times of like blind tests of audio files trying to identify a higher or lower quality sound sample in that realm, like lossless versus 192 or even 128, like CD quality. Or I'm sorry, the CD quality is only 44.1, and it's only 16-bit. So even in that realm, I don't know if people can really tell the difference. But hearing's a weird one, because hearing is like a mechanical thing, right? Like, whereas vision is little antennas in your eye that see part of the electromagnetic spectrum, but hearing is mechanical. In terms of the resolution, though, I wonder how that would be. As far as like, I could imagine maybe you have a broader spectrum of hearable signals, but as far as an ability to discern between them, I wonder. It's funny because like, we really don't like that. I mean, we tend, for things we want to listen to and consider pleasant, like music, like we really heavily kind of quantize or like, crunch the available audio spectrum down to just very specific slices. But I would be interested to learn more about that. Okay, what are we even talking about? I got distracted again. This is going to be a weird workshop. It's going to be me talking about nonsense and looking stuff up on the internet. I hope people like that. Maybe it'll get them excited. Yeah, anyway, we're going to talk about sensors. And I just need to find, like, maybe we'll just go check out SparkFun. Talk about where to get them and what they do. Because I think some people are sometimes surprised with the kinds of things you can sense. We just want a whole world of sensors. Look at this, $129 LiDAR. But these are all complicated. These are more like, we want also just simple components. Do you think those are in here too? Like, is a photocell going to be in a sensor, or is that a component? Sort by. Close. Apply. Okay. There's tiny things here. Yeah, like Hall effect sensors. Photocells $1.50. I think I have a bunch of photocells. So I think for our first hands-on, we're going to be making like some photocell theremins. Just because I have, pretty sure I have infinity photocells. But okay, these are all. I don't know why this is a sensor, but here we go. I don't remember how a reed switch is different than a Hall effect. Oh, it actually, so this is like a, more like a digital thing, right? Like it's on or off. There's no range to it, whereas a Hall effect sensor gives you some range. Is that true? Or just toggles. Okay. Handleless current. So maybe they're... I thought that you could get some proximity out of a Hall effect, but maybe not. I guess it's just kind of there or not. Oh, because there's some oh, yeah, there's a compass in here, and a compass is a magnet sensor. I was about to say, I thought there was some magnetic thing in the phone, but yeah, that's what we call that, a compass. Microphone. That's almost like a reverse actuator, right? It's like there's a mechanical movement. I love this. I like a good old-fashioned tilt sensor. It's just got a tiny ball in it. I like that a little bit more than these fancy old gyroscopes. I think I have some little vibration sensors. And then they also now have this whole line of things called quick. What are they called? They have like some line of interlocking sensors. They're not cheap, unfortunately, but they are. What do they call those things? It is called Quick. It just has. It's just spelled a weird way. So these are. I'm actually kind of into these. It's a sort of like Lego-y kind of thing. Oh, these look like they're quick. Maybe that's their whole jam now. They just feel a little expensive though, or a lot of expensive. What's their cheapest quick? I still have in a box somewhere probably several hundred infrared LEDs, 10 millimeter infrared LEDs because of Alibaba, because it was like, yeah. That I mean, that is truly I mean, that can happen. The problem is the slow shipping with Alibaba, because sometimes you just need a thing, and sometimes Amazon has stuff like this now. But so what's like the actually littlest thing you could have that is an actual thing? I like this, a hat. That's pretty cool. So you can plug the quick dudes into your Raspberry Pi. That actually seems kind of handy. So is this it? This is the cheapest one? Ooh, but I'm kind of into this. This is, I've been talking about my Phobot's project for a while. An I2C breakout, accelerometer breakout. Like, I think these things are pretty cool. And seem like an easiest way. How do you hook one to an Arduino? Or do they just have like some Arduino-like board that has quick connectors? This, like a red board with quick. So it's like an Arduino board, but it has but only one. But I think you can daisy chain them, which is also pretty cool. Look at this cute little guy. $8, back order. Anyway, we'll talk about sensors. Solder the pins onto the quick, but then they wouldn't be quick anymore. I want them to be quick. That's why you pay all that extra money for them. Okay, and then indicators and actuators. How do you spell solenoid? Solenoid? I don't like the way they integrate spelling in here. Solenoid. Ooh. Oh yeah, onto like if it's just a little baby sensor, I always use. I mean, I have a billion of those like prototyping breadboards, but sometimes the legs are just too skinny to cram in there. But yes, then you can just solder on or use gator clips or whatever. Now I'm just looking at jumper wire spaghetti. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And then we'll talk about brains. and like web services and communications. Why do you get discouraged? Should we do some more on that? I've been thinking a lot about doing more hardware-y streams. Maybe I need another webcam to just point at my desk, and then we can do some stuff. What do you want to make with hardware, Drecklin? What's it going to be? Hook it to MongoDB. You still have time. Man, I've been doing this for only an hour, and we have to like do the. I have to talk for 3 hours tomorrow. That's gonna be okay. The troubleshooting? Yeah, it depends on how complicated things can be. My personal trick for that, I mean, accelerometer stuff with RGB LEDs. So I think my personal trick, I'm not the greatest expert in the world, but I've done a fair amount of physical computing stuff. And I feel like the thing that has worked for me is to work too big at first and work with the pieces in isolation and get them to work and then put them together and then make it tiny. Like for example, like a lot of projects that, even if it's going to end up as on a Raspberry Pi in the end, I will probably just start working on it on my laptop and worry about that part later, because that just adds another layer of complexity. And in dealing with like interconnected systems of things like LEDs talking to the accelerometer, I would probably want to test the accelerometer in isolation and get all that stuff first. Like just break it apart. Start with an Arduino, just spewing out serial so you have lots of debugging. Like, I think there's ways to make it not too horrible. Raspberry Pi is kind of nice with the GPIO pins, because then you're just on the machine talking directly to the hardware, but it's not too different than just having an Arduino plugged into a laptop, getting all the data over serial. That's another thing we're going to try in this workshop, which I have never used at all, and I hope works because we're going to try it tomorrow, is so obviously a huge part of early Arduino, like learning how to use an Arduino, is getting serial output from it. And a problem with P5GS, of course, is that you cannot just talk to a serial device. So some ITP people put together this dude, which is like a little Electron app, which unfortunately has not been touched in a while. So I wonder if it's actually going to work. It's hard to say if it hasn't been touched in a while because it's broken, or if it's just so good that you don't have to mess with it. Drecklin, you can do this stuff for sure. Like you got what it takes. Especially if you just use the big, goofy, prototypey stuff. I wonder if this works. It would be kind of a bummer if it didn't. It would kind of surprise me if it didn't, 'cause, like, I assume that ITP is still doing this stuff all the time. It's been a while, though. The cost of going things wrong. Yeah, that's understandable. That is a thing that can suck. Like the big pieces can be pretty fine, like the standard pieces of like, I've got some Arduinos, I got a Raspberry Pi, whatever. A good set of individual simple components that you'll use, like resistors and capacitors and stuff, like that's fine. But yeah, it can be a bummer if you like order an expensive sensor and then you break it and it's going to take a long time to get it again. It's that can be a bummer. And that's one of the places where I struggle with this realm of things, because with software, if it's like, oh, I have an idea, I can just sit down and do it. With hardware, it's like, oh, I have an idea, let me go like try to source the stuff and it might be here in a week or whatever. The best advice I can do on that is like try to prototype the pieces you can as simply and inexpensively as possible, while you wait for the other pieces to come. And then I think over time, if you stick with that, you'll build up a collection of things. You know, like I have a box full of various pieces and sensors. Is this really gonna work? It'd be pretty cool if this just worked. So you telling me if I just plugged in? This runs the P5 serial server. So you probably have to run this and then like say the ports that are available. We'll figure it out tomorrow. So this is just P5 serial port, which has the library that you use on the P5 side and then has the WebSocket service that you use. And I guess it just, all this stuff happens over WebSocket. I'm assuming it all happens over WebSockets. And it doesn't even seem like you have to do anything, so maybe it just secretly has a whatever, some reserved port. Yeah, 8081. Well, that's not a very good secret port, is it? So that's an interesting thing. Maybe we'll play with that a little tomorrow. I don't know. Like it is such a task to get everybody in the class like using this stuff and all set up and on and on and on. Anyway, okay, so in fact, maybe we want to get into that tomorrow. So this is, we're going to talk about the pieces. We're talking about sensors. We're going to talk about output and making things happen. And then maybe a section, maybe an area that's just like, what does the class expect? I mean, basically it said, I just talked about in the summary, like, let's see what I said. I wrote it in November. But kind of going so far with what it's been like these art students, undergrads who don't have a ton of experience with kind of creative technology stuff that are interested in it. So I just don't think it would be useful to do anything too overly complicated with hardware or programming. I mean, I think they're going to generally be beginners. So explore techniques for building sophisticated interactive systems with no visible electronics. Blinking lights, big screens, physical technology recedes in the background of our lives. So using simple sensors, processing, and an Arduino, we will explore alternatives to the screens and buttons that surround us every day. As far as the hands-on part of that, I'm going to do that in the second workshop next week because it is a 2-part workshop. So I think in general, so here, for example, maybe one of the things I would propose, and let's just do this now, is like problems to solve. So for example, we could do some sort of art print in printmaking or screen printing or stenciling that used bare conductive ink. This fancy, expensive conductive ink, which I think this in my mind falls pretty nicely into the realm of invisible technology. Like you can make these crazy things that just look like paintings or screen prints or whatever, and you can touch it and interact with it, even though it appears to be a analog thing. You know, it's ink and paper. Maybe we'll call this media and tools, which I think is pretty awesome. So this realm is interesting. We've got some bare conductive stuff there, so maybe we can play with that a little bit. Or maybe they'll want to do something like the photocell's so easy to say like, oh, if someone puts their hand here, make a thing happen. Whether you're doing sculpture or some kind of textile thing or whatever, I think it's pretty easy to incorporate that to let you know that someone's hand has happened, and you can have a very simple circuit. Another thing I really like to work with is copper tape. So then you can make it really easily like, let's throw this in here. I don't think, unfortunately, I don't know if I took a picture of the back of this thing, because this thing was pretty cool. Some of these things, so I was doing, excuse me, paper-based electronics for a while. I don't have the other one. But like this thing is this little RGB dude where I made a design and I made a design by poking a needle through paper, and then built a weird enclosure just out of paper and aluminum foil, and even made a slider switch that was all like the whole thing was paper with the exception of the copper tape. Did I not make an animation of this? I should have documented this better. This dude though, like the back of this, the whole circuit is just copper tape, and then a few tiny my tiny resistors mounted, and then I ran out of tiny resistors and had to use one non-tiny resistor. So this is one of those examples of I didn't order enough things from DigiKey or whatever, and I blew one up. But this guy, actually, this is kind of a cool example because this was all like laser cutter and LEDs. What else? Like hiding antennas inside of things. That was a big thing with Heimdallr. This dude, this central shaft is really designed, it's bored out to hide the antenna for the Wi-Fi in it. So I think I'll try to come up with this realm of talking about like some of the media that they use and maybe are comfortable with, and ways to integrate technology into that. As far as the input, right? And then the output is a whole other thing of like what you want to output on the other side. The thing I typically output is sound, because I typically make noisy musical things, but you know, there's an infinite number of things that we could output. And I think if we do anything hands-on tomorrow, probably what we'll do is just play with if this then that, because it seems pretty achievable and it ties into stuff really easily. So like we could pretty easily make a it's a little bit annoying because they don't support it super well, but you could create a webhook and then hit a website with your Arduino or whatever to trigger off a thing, and there's just a million technology behaviors. So you know, you could make some sort of art installation that if it started to rain outside, you have some simulation of rain inside, or a sculptural umbrella opens, or you know, whatever, like whatever you would imagine, and it would seem magical because we would hide all the technology. So I think if this then that is maybe what we will spend like the last half hour on, is the hands-on part of the class will be like fitting things together. And I think actually that's like putting the pieces together is a big part of what I think is the really interesting pieces of the creative aspect of this is a lot of times not feeling like you need to invent something out of whole cloth, right? Like I don't think really none of these things, like beatbox, I didn't have to start from scratch on anything, sort of. Like there were existing tools that I could use to do stuff. Even some of these like service kinds of things that we've looked at on other streams. Like there's a million APIs and tools that you could use. So it's really easy with if this then that to say, send a text message or call somebody and say something weird or whatever. It's just not that hard to do. So maybe I need to build a few quick examples of that. the webhook parts of it is a little annoying. I'm trying to remember exactly how I did that. What are the two pieces of this? Yeah, this is not a great example. I think the webhooks is not... Because actually, now that I think about it, I can't remember if there is a, like an outgoing webhook. Like this webhook gives you a if this then that URL that you can hit. So I can hit a certain URL, which I think is a secret, and trigger another service. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure if there's the opposite of a webhook. What note says make or receive a request. So if I did, for example, create an applet that, like, if I pushed a button widget, then, okay, there is a webhook there. So I could make it where if I push a button widget, it could hit a URL. And then I can have certain ingredients. Oh, that's kind of weird. Oh, that's crazy. I can have my latitude and longitude. Whoa. Okay, maybe we'll have to do that as a little thing. Okay, what is that? That's like an hour and a half. I feel pretty good about this. This seems like a thing I can do, right? Draclin, is this insane? Is this gonna be, I'm gonna baffle the students? So I'll spend, probably what I will do tomorrow is I'll get up and have breakfast and go to the gym, whatever. And then I will spend a few more hours tightening this up, and then I'll take a break and have lunch and do all that stuff. And then we'll work on some demos and stuff at that point, and then I'll go teach the workshop, and then I'll have a week to come up with like a more concentrated hands-on thing. However, you think people, oh, I appreciate that. I gotta start drinking water while I stream. But now I feel like we have to make this thing that I just started to make. Because it seems kind of crazy that it just gives me all that info. And I'm gonna accidentally show it on stream and then dox myself. Draclin, are you ready to see me get doxed? You can finally track me down. No, you're sleeping. You don't want to see it. Eyes closed. Is that what that means? What is that? What does that icon mean? You tracked me down long ago? Is that true? Do you know exactly where I live? Do you know exactly where I live? How did I blow it? How did what tipped it off? What did I accidentally show? That map stream was a little fuzzy, so it wasn't exact. The pirate ship. Oh, that picture? The picture of the pirate ship? Was there some context in there I didn't pay attention to? You probably could. You probably could look at the pirate ship and know. Excuse me. But I bet you could, because I've been careless enough times, like messing with stuff. Give it a shot to track me down. Perfect. Yeah, during work hours. Yes, definitely. Use your work time to try to pinpoint my exact location. Very good idea. Okay, I want to just quickly try this to make a glitch. Let's make a new project that is Express. How can I do this? So I can just log this, right? Because it's going to be a get. That's the wrong one. So now if I hit this website, I get the whole... Really, I just would want the query string, but... Okay, so let's do a thing where, what was I doing? I don't want this. Look at it. Get out of here. Delete you. Go away. And I don't want this one. Okay, so let's do this, and let's say that on a button press in their app, then do a webhook, and the URL will be there. I don't know. An ingredient. Let's just do an occurred at for now. But in this case, I would want like whatever. Something like this. Okay. Whatever occurred at means. So presumably when I click the button, I will get some data that says, hey. But I said it's a... How can there be a body if it's a get? Okay, so... Too much. You think I'm going to run out of time? Draclin, have a great night. Thank you so much, as always. Daybon, is that? Am I saying that right? Daybon, is that right? I don't even know. I apologize. I might need a nickname for you. DBJ, DBZ, Dragon Ball Z, Daybon Z. Daybon, Deb. I apologize. It's a little hard with no feedback, you know? Like, if I heard you say it, I feel like I could do it. Daybon. Jana. Daybon Jana? I'm gonna go with Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z, I can say. Debanjana? Is that one word? Is it one? Is that like a single name, or is it two names put together, or three names put together? Okay, so I should be able to... Is this gonna be true? True or false? I believe I can push this button and get data here. I should have cleared that so I could know. Oh, it worked. So that's pretty easy, actually. That's your first name? Awesome. Welcome. Forgive me if I continually say your name incorrectly. Maybe I'll say your name different every single time. So with this very simple if this then that setup and this very simple glitch page, I have a button on my home screen on my phone that I can press, and we should get a response here. And we did. And it includes the time that I pressed it. So that's actually pretty cool. So this, I think maybe that the students will be into that. The idea of like, even though that's not, it's like slightly against the idea of invisible technology, just knowing that they can connect these pieces together and have a weird thing happen, because you could also make it like, whatever, draw a picture on the screen or call. I am a little curious about the voice part, because it'd be pretty crazy if you could call the if you could call on your phone with a phone number, surely they wouldn't do that. They do have some kind of VoIP call thing though. So is there delivers a phone call message through the app? But this is there's a phone call service. Get a wake-up call every morning with the weather report. It's kind of cool. I wish they would let you see these recipes in more detail. But I think this is what this is my safety net, right? For the workshop. Like if I run low on content and like I have too much time or whatever and I don't feel like I can stretch, I'll be like, okay, everybody, we'll do some if this, then that. That'll be my rescue. Okay, I think that's gonna be it for tonight. I think that was okay. It was all right stream. I was a little rusty on it. Thank you for Draklin for stopping by. Thank you, Dragon Ball Z, for your follow. And I hope to see you again. And we will talk tomorrow. So I'm going to definitely stream tomorrow. Thank you for the wish of good luck. I think it'll be okay. It's usually pretty fun and casual to teach there. So have a lovely evening, and I will talk to you all next time. Good night.